Fashion Design. I'm Britta Cabanos, the founder. And every Thursday, we do a community conversation with someone in the industry. And today, I'm super excited to have Lee Calderon joining us from North Carolina. And I can't remember how we first connected. I know it was through LinkedIn, but I think we had mutual connections and
something to that effect.
Yeah, and it led me to your website. And when I got to your website, I was so, well, the way you describe it is happy and vibrant, and it truly is. When you go to the website, it just feels, you know, that you can feel the energy, the colors, the graphics. And I think I personally resonated with your style of artwork because it was very similar to what I was doing in my design work for swimwear. A lot of graphic and geos and, you know, swirls and multicolored and all that. So it was really fun to look through your website, and I'm happy that you're joining us today. We're going to talk about design principles and just your background, get to know you. Yeah, you and I had a brief conversation about design principles when we first met, and then you kind of threw out there that you had some other ways of thinking about it. So that actually led me to looking up traditional foundational design principles in general. And I ended up putting together a blog post because I thought, you know, this is really interesting because there's different, I mean, generally most people narrow down design principles to 5 or 6 things: line, color, and whatnot. But then there's some other takes on it as well. So I put together a blog post about that with the idea of then speaking to you to kind of thinking out of the box and looking at it from a different point of view. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And again, thank you for joining us, everyone, and thanks for your time. So Lee, I'll just start off by maybe passing it to you to share a little bit about, first of all, your education, because I'm always so curious what people studied and how it led to a creative work that you're doing now. So education, and then brief, high level, kind of a little bit of your journey, how you went from, you know, studying what you studied, graduating, and then to where you are now as an artist. And I know that's could be quite a journey, but just kind of a high level summary so we understand kind of your background and where you how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. I'll start off first by saying thank you so much for having me, Britta. And I love your platform. It's such a great resource for the fashion industry. So I think all those who haven't had a chance to check it out should check it out, be a member. It's super cool and just really got me excited, as well as others, I'm sure. To answer your question, just top level as far as education or start, I went to, first I got my degree in architecture because I pretty much grew up in this architectural family. So it's one of those, I think, design disciplines probably that there's some sort of DNA strand, I think, that goes with that. And I think most of us can relate to that in some capacity. And then after that, I went to Art Center College of Design, where I focused on design and advertising. The interesting thing about that decision to go there, because I knew something was still not fulfilled. And so I was curious and wanted to kind of see what else was out there that really spoke to my heart or the core of my being, let's say, et cetera. And interesting enough, like my father, who was the architect, my mother actually ended up raising 2 kids, that sort of story back then. And but the irony is that she was always making her own fashion, her own clothes. I mean, beautiful stuff. I could, to this day, remember certain designs she created. And but it was one of those things where she never had the ability or whatever to really pursue that career. And it's a shame. You know, and it was one of those things where I definitely sat by her and was truly amazed and probably quite influenced by that as well. But so I did look into fashion schools, ended up actually going, like I said, to branding and advertising in that direction, and really fulfilled a career in that industry. So went through my career doing that worked up to be a creative director. But in the process and throughout my entire career, I was never far from doing art, working as an illustrator, commercially, editorially, so on and so forth. And so blending the worlds of brand design, in a sense, advertising, architecture, and certainly art is kind of where I've landed, and everything kind of coming together. So, and which I think is reflective in my work.
So you are currently self-employed, is that correct? Or do you?
Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, I do work at a creative agency, Arthur Elliott. They're amazing. It's a creative shop that really hinges its hat on transforming mindsets through creative work and certainly businesses. So that's, kind of where my life is spent, but duality wise, I'm also still working as an artist. So it's one of the beliefs in my opinion anyway, where everything really fertilizes the soil, of your creative mind, let's say.
Mhm.
So, and I'm a huge proponent of really kind of letting everything influence me in terms of different disciplines, whether it's fashion, furniture design, brand advertising. I mean, everything is up for game, and then you start to see kind of like these commonalities. And it's one of those things. Whenever I talk to designers, I say, okay, when you go to work on this, and this is, I feel, the case for any design discipline, it's like, who do you want to be today? Where do you want to go? Be something different than what you typically, play in that sandbox. Think, play in a different sandbox. Think like an archaeologist, think like a fashion designer, think like an astronaut, think like whatever it is, and just kind of borrow from a different mindset, and therefore filters to therefore reapproach the same problem. So,
Yeah, I like that. I get asked quite a bit as a designer, where do you get your inspiration from?
yeah,
And it's not a one place answer. It's, I think as a creative, you're inspired by everything you see every single day, whether it's
100%.
like what you're saying, like architecture, you're walking down the street and you just see a really
Hmm.
cool building with
Yeah.
a billboard or a mural on it. And then it could be you're hiking in nature and you see all these pretty flowers, or,
Hmm.
as a creative, I think you're constantly absorbing and taking in
Yes.
your surroundings. And I think to your point of what you just said, oftentimes, I guess speaking from personal experience as specifically a swimwear designer,
Hmm.
like after a while, well, the branding is important and the brand DNA is important. You have that certain look.
Hmm.
But to try to avoid being pigeonholed into one style or one source of where you're getting inspiration, because then it just starts narrowing your thinking.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's, I tend to want to simplify things and almost like, say, okay, I'm going to think like a kindergartner and think, because really that is the most, uh, resourceful, pure, raw way of thinking. Everything's new. So, if you approach it that way, you allow yourself the opportunity or greater opportunity to invent. And I think that newness is something where I think we get caught too much in the weeds of things, and we need to kind of really, play pretend, make believe, that sort of thing. So, if that were the case, you just gave yourself the gift of freedom. If you give
Mhm.
yourself the gift of freedom, guess what? You just created a bigger world for yourself from which to draw.
Yeah. How do you find working with clients um, on a specific project? Is that a challenge sometimes to get them to think out of the box? Because they might have such a, I don't know if it's necessarily a narrow, but they have this thought or idea in their head,
Right.
and to get them to open up and maybe listen to you as a creative. And sometimes like we find that challenging working with clients where they're just not maybe as open to other ideas.
Yeah,
How do you find that in your work as well? And how would you
a
deal
hundred
with?
percent.
something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think none of us are, well, maybe a few of us, a very small percentage in the world, but being free from that sort of situation. So as a situation, that sounds funny. As it relates to dealing with clients, it really comes down to understanding psychology and really reading the room, as they say, having great conversations. And with that, you need to, at the end of the day, we're all salespeople. We all have to know how to, because I don't care what it is or what you've designed or whatever, you can see it and then you can spin a story. You can create
Mm.
this thing, but you cannot do that unless you understand what their world is about. If you understand what their world is about, then you could get them to understand your world. So you get to talking about, everything gets put in a certain light. There are certain things they're not going to care about, which is fine. You leave that out of the conversation, but instead you highlight these things that are going to be helpful in telling the story that they care about. Because at the end of the day, that's the bottom line. And so whether it's transactional, sales or that sort of mindset, or if it's awareness, or if it's connecting with a certain target audience, whatever it is, you lock into that like the Terminator kind of tractor
Mhm.
beam, and you say, okay, this is my objective. Here is my little portal from which I'm going to be able to sell this idea, this design, and you go through that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think
Mhm.
designers, through experience, you start to learn that, like you said, you are a salesperson. And every time
Yeah,
you're presenting something, you have to convince them why, why you did it, why it's a good design, and knowing their story, knowing their background, and knowing what the vision is or the goal of the project is key. And
yeah,
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 and that's not
exactly.
always, I mean, that's number one, not taught in school, I don't think.
No, no,
When you're studying
right.
design or maybe even
Yeah,
architecture or something, you're not taught. You do presentations in class and you kind of get a little experience of trying to convince, but it's not necessarily a skill that's taught that you are going to need to present and sell and convince and
absolutely.
understand why. So that's, yeah, kind of a challenge, I
Absolutely.
think, for
Yeah,
creatives.
absolutely. I think that's a great point, Britta, in that if anything, the the schools out there, yeah, you get to develop concepts, you get these projects, you present to a certain extent, whatever. But I think there's a big disservice done in the terms of business, in terms of psychology, in terms of salesmanship, like you pointed out, and really, which is something that I'm a huge fan of, is understanding that at the end of the day, you're trying to connect with another human. So we're emotional beings. So why not go for something and truly understand what the levers are, the trigger points of being able to connect at that level? Because that is the one thing, if there's something I've learned, that is, it's the emotional connection has so much power that it makes people, pull out their Visa card or whatever it is, beyond logic, beyond rationale, and that sort of thing. So if you could really connect at that level, I think you stand a really good chance.
Yeah. Something I didn't learn till I had been designing for many years is that brand filter, calling it a brand
Mhm.
filter and looking at
Yeah,
every print, every color, every design details.
yeah,
Is it, am I putting it through that brand filter? So that was another thing
right.
that I think, just learning from experience, that,
Yeah.
is a
I th-
good way to look at your designs that you're working on, whether for a
ab-
client or your own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the word brand is not a negative thing. I think it is a powerful tool because to me that equals like, this world that you're creating, and to understand that everything you create for this world, such as a collection, etc., has to be for the purpose or objective of making your brand, let's say, believable, to make it something where, wow, it makes total sense emotionally, and it it is something I resonate with. So now I'm buying into it. Perfect example, like imagine creating Star Wars, and it's like, it's kind of like C plus level effects, this, that, and the other, and you're not going to buy into it. You have to make it believable to go, wow, I'm now part of this world. I get it. It resonates. And it's like a living thing. It's more real. So you believe
Yeah. I'm going to share my screen and just to share your website for a moment.
Okay.
Let's see, share screen. And so here is the website for anyone that wants to look it up. It's simply your name, leecalderon.com.
Okay.
And so maybe just going through, I don't know, like even what you're saying here, I think is so exciting. You're talking about, what you just mentioned, the emotional glue that brings things together. And the design and all of that. So this is really cool. I liked this page where you're working through your process. So maybe talk a little bit about your process, like these quick sketches and how
Absolutely.
you go about just coming up with a design that you're working on for, the business or client.
Absolutely. It's always tricky whenever I'm developing the idea, the sketches or whatever, because I think we all can attest to this to a certain extent. It's so difficult to capture it because, probably a good 80% of the song, so to speak, is still kind of like building and understanding each other, all the, let's say, musical notes in your head. And so to try to capture that and make it in a way where, okay, now you got to get somebody else to hear the music, so to speak, is always a task unto itself. So I tend to want to focus on what the story is about, what the meaning, what is the feeling that I want you to feel or experience with any certain piece. And if I can grab that as much as possible, and I oftentimes will throw in some notes or say, here's the story that goes with it. And that is part of, going back to our earlier point, the selling process. If you could get them to get the trailer, so to speak, to your movie, you're pretty good. You're off to the races. And so a lot of times I'll try to capture some of the layers, some of the main elements and that sort of thing that I know will be featured when the artwork is finalized.
Oh, I love these hand sketches. So you mostly work in Illustrator, correct? Is that
100%. Yeah, I work 100% in Illustrator. I think it helps me deal with my own mental process of development. So I love the notion of not knowing 100% how the story's going to end, in terms of, I know what the story's about, but in terms of really what's going to heighten it to the most, giving it the most emotional impact, and it could be something, I equate it quite a bit to music, where, you hear a certain rhythm, you see a certain rhythm, whether it's through colors or the vernacular, in other words, like the visual language to a piece. And it's understanding that, again, not unlike a musician, to say, okay, I got it. We're going to focus on 3 basic colors: red, yellow, blue. That's pretty basic. That's really basic. So then to say, okay, it's going to have this sense of industrial geometry to it. Okay, great. Then you start to make certain decisions. Okay, well, if I want this certain character featured and I want your attention to go to this character who's, I don't know if you can see it, understand that, but that's a woman running, a jogger there with her yellow shoes and that sort of thing. But to say, okay, I'm going to establish that in the void of this framework. So composition, all these other, things that you beautifully captured in your blog on principles do come into play. Again, much like music, you create a certain rhythm, and then that's what, it's like creating it like the ground. It's sort of kind of like this grid. A grid is a simple device to establish a certain order, therefore a rhythm. Same thing with the 3 holes in the red vertical piece. Same thing. Okay, you got something, then you hear that. Think of it as the drum or the oboe or whatever, just coming in and hitting at certain notes. So it's just all music. It's all planned, and you're going to push this back. You're going to bring this up. You're going to emphasize this, that, and the other. So it's so Illustrator, I think, allows me to do that, allows me to play. And to me, that's equated to freedom, much to our conversation earlier.
So since you're talking about rhythm and all that balance and proportion and all that, that is going back to the design principles. So why don't we go ahead and jump ahead
Okay.
to your thoughts on design principles? And
Absolutely.
if you need to share, are you going to share screen now?
Yeah. Let
Okay,
me,
you should be able to.
okay, I'll
Do I
bump
need to
you up.
stop? I'll stop my share and then you can take over.
Okay. Bear with me. There.
Well, I'm so anxious to hear this too, because I do not know what you have in store. So surprise for me as well.
All right. Well, the way I'd like to look at things, it's true. And again, your blog that you wrote and showed these examples was beautifully done and captured true fundamental design principles as either we've been taught, we know about, we read about, and it's something that is easily can kind of get lost in the ether of our work and whatever. But it's good to, I think it is the one commonality to all forms of design, architecture, fashion, brand work, even music, so on and so forth, that we borrow from these fundamental principles because they connect to us as a human in a bit of a scientific way, if you will. And we're the type of creatures where we understand that we have this certain, left brain, right brain kind of experience. And to understand the scientific or the, instinctive, I guess, aspect of it is super important. The one thing that I guess has always nipped at me a little bit is like, if I wanted to kind of wrap a skin around that and kind of step up at a maybe slightly higher emotional level, what would that version of the principles be? And I think that's where all this starts. So again, I'm really one that loves and appreciates humans on an emotional level, and especially therefore as it relates to design and its power. So I put this, it's super simple deck. There's nothing really extravagant or big about it, but I named it, as you can see, being dramatic or be dramatic, because really I think that is the doorway to these other design principles. And as I kind of rinse through this, I'll be talking about stuff that either will maybe be obvious, maybe be a little bit new, or I don't know, maybe hopefully do something. So I'll just jump in. Okay, so here's the way I see this. We see a modern space, we see this staircase winding, certain materials, so on and so forth. My brain and probably other designers will see this as, wow, it's such a box. And then what happens is the box governs and allows drama to happen. It invites drama to happen or not. This is your opportunity. And that's what I think these design principles are, is to say, design principles can now be more opportunity based to allow you and empower you to make certain decisions for the sake of a more impactful emotional connection or experience. So in this case, the rectilinear box, the rather neutral box, all of a sudden, guess what? Becomes exciting because somebody decided to, in a likewise pure geometric sense, put a simple circle. Didn't have to be a circle, but this architect said, keep it pure. Let's put a circle. What happens at that one point? You have the drama. You have the, like drapery staircase that comes. The warmth of the wood speaks to the rest, so it's not alienated. It's not foreign. It works with it. It understands it, but it brings the drama into it, which otherwise would be probably relatively sterile space. So, again, I know everybody's probably familiar with Emilio Pucci of the really 60s, 70s fashion and beyond. But I've always been a huge proponent, fan, etc. Because boy, you talk about drama, you talk about keeping the silhouettes simple, and then just through colors and just little movement, because really at the end of the day, it's a line that takes this wavy form. So again, it respects the overarching shape or silhouette, and then it just lets the drama kind of unfold. The shapes get larger in scale, but it doesn't introduce another element. It creates the drama from within its space, or it's knowing what it is, what it's about. So to me, that's like super exciting and just visually just amazing. And even the photography does the same thing. And then you have, her legs sticking out just enough to, I mean, it's just brilliant. And that's kind of stuff that gets me passionate and crazy. So here's a simple, yet another version is we have this window display where for Louis Vuitton, there was this cupcake created, putting obviously the cherry on top being the handbag, super brilliant, super dramatic, super oversized. And then it's kept contained because it's relatively monochromatic, with the key element being the thing that brings the drama, the cherry on top, if you will, to the scene. So again, super brilliant, and everything it stays on this emotional level that I can then break down intellectually for just really the purpose of conversation more than anything. But you cannot help but be taken by it. So. And then here's a print ad campaign that was done for Adobe, where same thing. It understands what the hero needs to be. And so they choose a background of black, have him wear a black shirt, and then the highlight, the drama, is where they want it to be on the creative, the human, and all the colors, everything comes to there, and that's what it's about. So again, it's knowing how to manipulate for the sake of drama and to convey the story. It's always about the story too. Again, they could have put a living wall flanking this little bistro outdoor eating area. But what's the more dramatic situation? Let's go all the way up the wall, but not stopping there. They put a bicycle on the building. I mean, that's just so amazing. And
That's amazing. Yeah.
It heightens the drama, but it doesn't fight it. It doesn't fight the wall. The wall's got these curvy shapes, and they're relatively monochromatic. And then we have a bicycle which has the two wheels and its own curvy shape to it and all this. And it's there, but it's there for you to discover as your eyes kind of make its way up. Like, wow, it's all about knowing how to manipulate us in just a delightful way, and bring that joy and that maybe a little giggle and just appreciation of it. I think it just transforms the space. It's not predictable, it's unexpected. I mean, that's what drama is all about.
Yeah, I like the surprise and delight. That's something we're always thinking about, is how can you surprise and delight? And it's
Yeah,
unexpected. They go to have lunch there, and then all of a sudden they look up and they just smile
exactly.
because of that little
Yeah,
surprise
a
element.
little surprise element. It's in the world of fashion, it's, you can really contain that, or you can just, in an exuberant way, just put it out there. So either way, that emotional journey is really, I mean, to me, it's mentally, emotionally delicious. I mean, it's just wonderful to have the opportunity and gratitude to experience something like that. It's to me what makes life.
If I can interrupt you with a
Absolutely,
question,
absolutely.
how do you know that it's working? Or, how do you know that you've gone too far or over the top where it may have an adverse effect? Like, is that something you just feel? Or, 'cause
Yeah,
you could go crazy,
right.
and then it becomes kind of maybe more uncomfortable or disruptive feeling. Is there a logical or scientific, I don't know, equation to know?
Yeah. I think part of it is, I mean, that's a great question, Britta. There's the sense where, especially in the world of, maximalism, let's say, where, oh my gosh, okay, they went crazy, they didn't know when to stop or whatever. But I think there's, just like anything else, there's, yeah, when you did cross that line and it's too much. But then you get into one of my other design principles, which you have to understand, the Devon stage. What is the, I mean, because right, like if you're talking about like a Cirque du Soleil experience or some fashion moment, you have to understand if you're going to go all out or if you're going to go with the minimalist vision. You have to understand at the end of the day, who is the diva on stage. Everything else builds from that. Okay, just like a play, there's got to be pretty much one hero. Truly, I mean, if you really understand it, if you dissect it, everything else is the supporting cast. Design, fashion, music is no different. A song's going to be, just horrible on your mind and your, whatever your being. If it's like, it's almost like going to a middle school, orchestra rehearsal. It's like, okay, kind of, just like noise. It's just too much. It's not understanding. Here's where we're going to focus. Here's the support. Well, maybe they try to do that, but they don't. And how it's all put together. I think it's one of those things with refinement. You get to get a gut feeling, instinct, and feel for it, pretty much like anything else, because it is all about a sort of kind of a non-academic or equational situation. It's so emotionally charged or driven. And that's why it makes it, okay, I don't know, there is no exact A plus B equals C formula.
Yeah. And everyone is going to take it in a different way. But to your point of instinct, I find that too, as a designer, and after so many years of being a designer, you have a gut feeling and you have kind of a natural instinct based on your past experiences. And so you do kind of just feel it. And I think that's one thing that just comes with time and experience. And
absolutely.
Thank you for answering that.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I've always had an inside joke where, gut, you spoke to gut, instinct. Gut sounds a lot like God. I don't think it's by mistake. It's one of those, the driving force, and whatever. But it's like I've always thought, like, okay, that's kind of funny. But so there's something to be said definitely about, you are your own divine force by which you have to learn, as Plato said, know thyself. The more you understand what makes you tick, how you see things, what is instinct to you, how do you feel, how do you speak, how do you want to, portray yourself, all of that is your instinct and your opportunity to discover. Nobody else is going to discover it for you, basically.
Very well said.
So, but thank you. So again, here's a super simple, controlled, minimalist. I mean, incredibly elegant, but again, it's knowing where the drama is. We know the simplicity of the silhouette, the form, even keeping it one color, and then all of a sudden there's just it's an elaboration on something that is within the neutrality of this design, let's say. So it's like you have a yarn and you're kind of pulling the threads from one yarn. You're not introducing something new, in this case, to manipulate, to create drama. So it's brilliant. It's really difficult, but it's like knowing it, how to work it, going from wide to narrow, whether it's the top part or the outer part, and just really understanding what you're creating and building from that, if that makes sense.
That's a gorgeous piece. Yeah.
It's super amazing, timeless. Okay, so talk about maximalism.
Hmm.
But it's interesting. I love this this little duality here, from the cover on the left to the cover on the right. And here it says dramatic new silhouettes. And it's interesting how even the choices in the photo shoot for the one on the right is where, once again, they art direct and they create and work with the design to understand what it's about. But imagine if it were, had teals and it had purples and oranges in the background, and yeah, we're maximalists and we got flowers and we got wallpaper, and it's like, but you just destroyed the integrity of where you want me to focus and emotionally be connected. What is my design portal as a recipient? And so they said, okay, we're going to be maximalist. We're going to be, Baroque, Rococo-y, whatever, but we're going to control it because we're going to control, the play on the stage and how that unfolds. Again, where the diva is on the stage, where the attention is on the stage at this given moment. Even the typing and the hot pink or whatever, everything is, isn't an accident. So again, so that kind of thing. So I see this, and that's kind of like the process of that I digest, and the thing that excites me when I see certain forms of design. So much like that, a book cover, okay, that's no different. But you talk about drama, and then again, drama is further heightened when it's integrated with something like the story. It isn't just an accident; it's intentional. It's focused. Look, there's another human whose back we're looking at within the silhouette of the bird, and so right away, what does that do? That conjures incredible intrigue and obviously drama, but it pulls us in. And really, what is the objective of a book cover? It's to be a tractor beam. It's to pull you in, to make you pick it up, to say, wow, I want to know more about this story. I want to see, what happens. And it's, and it says when the doves disappeared, but it's so amazing. And to not allow you to get lost in the experience, they say, okay, then let's keep it simple, neutral, monochromatic, but have just a touch of contrast to touch on one of your design principles that you captured in your blog, is to say, let's keep this neutral so we can control where the drama happens, because that's what I want to do. Otherwise, if it was an orange bird silhouette and you got the guys, or a full color image, and it's too much. It's too much. This is a really controlled manipulation through drama, contrast, simplicity, and the objective of the story. Just enough to tease you, to lure you in. So to me, that's like super exciting. You see only one eye, and on and on, and his ears, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, it took me a couple seconds to realize that was the back of his
Yeah,
head. It was almost an
you're
illusion.
right. It is. It's amazing. So it is a beautiful thing to do that, and it's okay even if like somebody discovered it maybe even after they bought the book, or
Right.
whatever. That's so cool. It's still
Another
cool.
surprise and delight.
That's right. It's all about surprise and delight. Um, and then here's just a beautiful structure. I believe this is in Spain. Hopefully I didn't butcher that, but and it's I believe what they consider parametric architecture. So again, going through the filter here of design, other design principles, etc., is you have this very organic form, and it's undulating, and then it's got these piercings, so to speak, the bigger openings. And then, but what's amazing is the thing that truly allows you to do that without making it a hot mess, let's say, is the fact that it's a grid. It's really a grid. And going back to the earlier part of the conversation, a grid to us humans is a simple, obvious pattern. And we as humans look for the pattern to help ground us, to give something order, to give something rationale and sense. Now, with that being established, I could go crazy. We can go in and out and up and down and, and just be this beautiful piece of music. It's lyrical. I mean, it's amazing. And it's still always grounded in the neutrality of its coloring, which is that, raw kind of wood situation. And then the grid, structure. Brilliant, brilliant,
That's
brilliant.
beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Another window display. I'm probably taking way too long here, but I told you, get out your Nerf gun. So,
I love it.
I'll try to hurry up. But so here, Anthropologie, I think we've all been fans of their window displays. And again, this is just a quick little shot showing like, wow, it's not just, what we would expect, but it's like making a big statement, and how everything, it speaks to nature, speaks to the, the curvilinear shapes. It's not hard points and all this. So then it allows, the outfit and the environment and a certain thing that you're wanting me to feel, drama, but at the same time, the beauty of something connected to, nature. And the curve softness softens it and allows me to make that connection and enjoy with delight this moment. And I love the decision that it's not the entire butterfly, but it's a little more unexpected, and it's half of the butterfly, and then the layers that they want me to be drawn in by. So again, it's just amazing.
I think every time I walk by their store,
You're right.
I am drawn in because their windows are
Yeah,
so gorgeous. And even if
it's
I'm not
amazing.
shopping, I want to go in,
Yeah,
see what they're, touch and feel everything, because they do such a beautiful job.
100%. They do a great job. It's always a wonderful visual experience, and I too look forward to it. So this is the outside of a advertising agency in Venice, California, Giant Day, and they hired or commissioned Klaus Aldenberg, who's well known obviously for his oversized sculptures, and because it's near the beach, he designed these binoculars, in which case serves as the entry point to go under and get into the building and that sort of thing. So again, it's just a moment. You're walking around. There's all these buildings. 95% of them look probably kind of cousins to each other. Blah blah blah. And then here's this dramatic moment. It's like no, and it's at this point of piercing this world and getting you into a totally different creative space. So things like that are just really cool. This is a silly ad, but kind of cool and dramatic, this is, I believe, for a mouthwash. And so they take the element of the car freshener and put it pretty much in the mouth. So again, the unexpected, and again, playing with the more fundamental design principles of scale, dramatic proportions, and again, the drama aspect comes into it, and it just really makes an impactful ad.
It's memorable.
It's memorable, and
So it sticks in your head.
exactly. This is just an example of where it's super simple, but it's a nice, again, piece of music, where you have the rhythm of the ribbing on the roof. It's a white box, the windows, the doors, even the skinny little column metal posts, everything abides to this certain neutrality, this certain rhythm of this song that we're looking at in the shape of a building. And then within that, they pierce out, they come out, they grow the certain moments of drama. And obviously through the window, we can see that's where the artwork goes, that's where the lighting is, and it totally abides by the law that they have created here. So super simple example, but nevertheless, just a really interesting design example. Another example of drama, something a little out of the ordinary for display, turn it into the human, you can connect, you can relate, and just building this little world, this moment that you get to experience. So, and again, keeping the colorization, everything under control, letting the drama be the drama, the unexpected, concept. Signage is no different. It's also a matter of being aware and observant in our lives, as far as what you were speaking to, Britta, in terms of like, well, gosh, where do ideas come from? Well, this is one way, is through awareness, knowing that, oh gosh, there's a lot of reflection on this shiny floor that's polished concrete or whatever. And to say, you know what, we can do this, have half the sign, and through illumination, it's going to naturally reflect in the rest of the sign. So all of a sudden it changes, transforms the space, creates a new concept, creates the unexpected, and creates a moment of delight and engagement. So it's again pretty cool. It's just black and white typography. It isn't crazy. It doesn't fight itself. It allows the idea to be the drama or the hero. So
it's so simple, but so
simple.
dramatic.
Right, and dimensional because of that too. We all know the Whitney, the Guggenheim. Oops, Frank Lloyd Wright years ago. So again, same thing, drama, right? It's the white, it's pure white, so it allows for the drama, the moment, the focus to be the focus, and that is obviously the curvilinear walls and spaces that they've created. Everything rhythmically abides by that order and respects that, and allows the true drama to be what it is, the intent. So you start to get into this world of hierarchy and that sort of thing again. So a well-known discipline. Obvious drama on stage, a Phantom of the Opera kind of thing. You create this chandelier that is bigger than life, comes over the audience, and everybody's engaged. You are now really, connecting on an emotional level, experiential level. And to me, these kinds of experiences is just yet like I said, the emotional driving engine to design, because it is designed. All these spaces are designed to captivate you, to tell a story, and to lead you from, standing in front of a mirror to standing on a grand stairway to ducking as a chandelier goes over your head. So it starts to take control of this experiential journey, which is really beautiful and amazing. So therefore, the other design principles that I think on a emotional, maybe different level or whatever, without getting in the weeds, would be the drama, the layers, the intent, vibe, and God. So with that, I can kind of like stop sharing.
Yeah, so you had mentioned the God thing a little while ago, and then that was your fourth principle.
Yeah. So I mean, I can keep touching on the different principles, or if that was like, too much or already enough.
I think it's great. Maybe just touching briefly on the layers and the God, and then what am I missing? The
intent and vibe.
Yeah.
So we pretty much, I think, covered drama. The layers is really something that deals with understanding, and I kind of touched on this as well, probably all of these a little bit, really gets into understanding the experience and what the focus is, and then leading somebody through the focus. So again, it ties into composition, it ties into opacity, it ties into color, where the focus is, if it's more intense color versus subdued. It could tie into how these layers help tell the story through detail, bigger shapes. One example is, it's silly, but again, you can't turn it off. When you get that pizza on Friday night delivered to you, here you have the purity of the circle, and it's cut up this way, and then you got all the layers, and you understand, sort of kind of the experience, and you look through the different elements to understand your brain kind of triggers different either flavors or things you like, or things, oh wait, what's this mushroom doing here, or whatever. But design is like that. It's there to help you tell a story and go through an experience, because now I can lead you dimensionally as far as what the design story is about.
Mhm.
So to me, layers is definitely that sort of thing. Negative space, color, opacities, elements, this versus that, hard versus soft, so on and so forth. Um, so that's pretty much the idea with layers, to help tell story and connect with you emotionally. Intent is my little in parentheses line is, kiss me like you mean it, kind of
Mhm.
thing. So without intent, you're sort of kind of just, I think, flailing a little bit, or maybe just wanting to get lost and experiment. Intent at the end of the day is how you want somebody to feel. It's sort of kind of, think of it as like design for a different purpose. It's where objective comes in, obviously. It's about understanding what you want to transform, because if you're not transforming something, you're sort of kind of an old story. You're sort of kind of maybe ineffective. So
Mhm.
until you transform something, whether it's status quo, or the way you walk from here to there, or the way you know, experience a gallery, but now it's immersive. Okay, you transformed something. And it's a dark space, and now here's Van Gogh, and then here's this, that, and the other, whatever. So you need that. You need to understand what is your intent, and you need to then take control of the design to really bring that to light. And you can't really do that. You can't really go through the exercise of design unless you know what it is you want the experience or the emotional takeaway to be about.
Mhm.
So it all comes full circle.
Right.
Otherwise you'll end up maybe here, but then here, and then, or whatever. And it helps you, I think, as a designer to make decisions faster, because now you focus, your designs will be clear as to what they're all about. And then you could go crazy because you understand it, and you're the designer. You understand what its purpose is.
Right.
So
Right.
so that's kind of that. Yeah, and then I think there was vibe, and that's pretty self-explanatory. That's probably, in a sense, one of the most emotional, like, making somebody feel something, uh, capturing a certain spirit, a certain story,
Mhm.
and again, making it apparent as to what that story and that takeaway feeling is about. If it's grounded in something historic, culturally, um, a certain audience, a certain history of a place, or of a, if you're trying to create a period piece, in fashion, or a certain musical piece, whatever. You want to know what it is you want somebody to feel through the coloring, through the most obvious emotional part of it, I think. And that's the vibe. That one's a little tricky to really, you know, pick up and hold in your hand, because it is about a spirit, the retro kind of vibe, whatever, an Art Deco vibe, etc. So I think that is a nice color on your palette, so to speak, as you kind of go into design land. And I think probably the most, aside from the drama, and I think that's why I bookend that way. To me, there's the drama, and then there's God. And as I mentioned earlier about my joke and side joke about God sounds a lot like gut, is because the God aspect, on one hand, is really grounded into instinct, and on the other hand, there's something, powerful, pure, focused, and clear about, I would say, for the most part, of how, God would approach it. But now when it comes to what we're creating, if it's a dress, if it's a, piece of, brand design work, if it's a, a mural, if it's a whatever it is, a song, etc., we want to understand, well, what is the God in your design? And you're thinking like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, understand what you're creating. In other words, you get one Diva on stage, you get one God per design. If the vision for the God is, let's say in architecture, let's say it's the main, as we all know, the cathedrals that are beautiful and timeless of hundreds of years ago. If the understanding is that there's this long, long, long aisle all the way to the altar, the trajectory, the experience of making you feel, and for back then, making you feel lesser and fearing God, let's say, is the experience of that approach. And therefore, if you heighten it and understand that it is this linear process, this linear journey that is the God of the design, everything is playing off of that. Everything is subservient to that. Okay, so you have, it's let's say a Latin cross. So you have the shorter, perpendicular, whatever part of it. The altar is there. The altar is right where the cross is intersecting. Everything is abiding by that one decision, that one rule, that one piece of yarn. Everything else, height-wise, sideways, whatever it is, says that's what it's about. And then guess what? We're going to put a dome right where all this intersects. Same thing. It's drawn from that one idea. And to me, that's understanding. I mean, the example of the cathedral, I mean, no pun intended about the God example or thinking, but it's sort of kind of the most obvious, I guess. But it's no different, a song, same thing. What do you want it to do? How do you want it to build? What is it about? A dress, same thing. It's all about the silhouette, but we're going to keep that simple. And then the surprise element. But the God, the order is that simplicity, because why? Now it's made you decide, I'm going to keep it pure black. Now I'm going to add the little drama touch to it. It's like, wow. But it knows what it's about. It knows how to control it. It knows the God of the design. So understanding what is the driving force, if it's a grid system that helps lay the land, that acts as the God, so that way you can be random, you can be playful, you can be brilliant, you can be whatever, but as long as you know what grounds it and says, here's the order, here's God, here's what keeps it where you can, as a human soul, relate to it, and then the rest is what elevates it through design. So
it's such a great way to think about your own design moving forward, and it's definitely a different perspective, and it can apply to anything, and architects,
100%.
like you mentioned, the music, whether it's a swimsuit or an evening dress or a building or a song, they can apply to all of it. And it's I love the perspective you have on it. And I have a question that kind of popped up into my head as we were just talking, as you were talking through this. And you're a creator, obviously. You're the one coming up with the hand sketch to start, and then putting it in Illustrator, and then putting it on a building or into a licensed product. So AI. So my son has a little music account. He has a little Spotify thing because he creates his own music. So he's creating album covers through AI. And he's showing me, he's like, Mom, just type in a description. He was showing me how it works. So I typed in blue swirls, I don't know, put in a couple descriptive words, and within a few minutes, it came up with an album cover that was a beautiful, like, blue tie-dye swirly image. So what are your thoughts on that? And we only have, we're kind of up with our time, but I'd love, to hear that. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to put in the chat or chime in. And then we'll wrap things up. But yeah, what do you think that, how is that going to affect artists?
Everything.
And it's kind of, it's exciting, but scary at the same time.
It is. It's scary in the sense of, well, we don't know, number one. We tend to sort of kind of think we know and assign it certain opinions. The way I look at it is AI is really yet another tool, much like when the computer got introduced to our world, right? It was all about more hands-on, this, that, and the other. And I mean, if you think back to when computers got into the equation, we all thought, oh my gosh, that's it. I'm screwed and it will take over and it will do the work for me. And to a certain extent, it sort of kind of did a little bit. The thing with AI is I think there might be some value to it, some certainly intriguing. I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to how we're going to use it and how we're going to use it to without relinquishing uh, our opportunity to sort of kind of play God, right? As we designers do, we play this creator role, and you know, to me, if you consider these design principles and everything we talked about, everything that's in your wonderful broadcast, et cetera, is that there are certain things that, you know, you need to know as an artist, as a designer, to kind of bring to life. And AI, at least as we know it now, is a bit of a random generator. You are relinquishing your role as a true artist or designer for the most part. I think more so than not. It becomes more of a, I think at least at this point, a role of curation, a role of directives and that sort of thing. I mean, to the point where, you know, is that really what you believe or want? I understand there's sophistication, obviously, learning that it's going through and all this. So, you know, we'll see amazing things more and more leveling up. But to me, it's like, it's a moot point. I think it's all about what it is you want to do versus something or someone else. Because I don't think there's enough of an emotional, I mean, there isn't, you know,
Right.
part of the equation that or understanding. So
Yeah,
I
you're
don't,
losing the whole human
oh,
side of
100%.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it starts to become a problem solver more than anything.
Mhm.
Excuse me, a problem solver. So I think we're more than that.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. Any last words of, I don't know, advice for someone wanting to do what you do?
um, well, I think to me, it's all about creating joy. It's
Mhm.
all about creating a certain world or a moment or many moments of a world. I think it's about empathy, about understanding, you know, somebody else, and then creating something that, you know, that sort of kind of fits the bill. And I think the more you understand the emotional guiding principles of something, you will resonate deeper. And like I said, regardless of what sort of creator you are,
Mhm.
I think there's a place for it, and probably AI can't touch it.
Right. Right. Fantastic. Well, this has been a fun session.
Mm,
Thank you so much.
thank
You can be
you.
reached at your website, leecalderon.com, right? Or any
Yep,
other
absolutely,
LinkedIn and all of
absolutely.
that. So
Yep,
feel free to reach out, and thanks for your time, and thanks for coming, everyone, and joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
thank you.
Take
It's
care.
been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.